I'm MiMi. Welcome to Reading with MiMi, the Glad Scientist. I will be reading to you Lil Dan the Drummer Boy, a Civil War story. And I also have my pet Chiquita here. Chiquita the cheetah. She's named after Josephine Baker's cheetah, Chiquita. So, Lil Dan the Drummer Boy. Foreword by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And it's by Romare Bearden. He's like the star. So how did these illustrations make you feel? They make me feel abstract and good. They make me feel good. How do they make you feel?
They make me feel the same as you.
Oh, okay. He's like, Is that Lil Dan the Drummer Boy. Okay, he's getting that page. The workday was long and hard for slaves on cotton plantations. When the cotton was high, everyone was in the fields picking and baling it from sun up to sundown. On the Hollis plantation, when the day's work was over, Lil Dan always came to listen to Mr. Ned play his drum. Mr. Ned said that his father had given him the drum and taught him how to play it. He said, "This drum came from a faraway place called Africa, way across the water." Woo-woo! And each day, Mr. Ned taught Lil Dan drumming, just the way he had learned from his father. So look at the slaves. They're playing, they're pitting cotton, working hard. One Sunday, Dan borrowed an axe and went in the woods, where he worked all day making his own drum. Dun, dun, dun. When he finished, Dan stretched a big pig hide over the top and pulled it taut with the heavy twine used to bind the cotton bales. Pull, pull, pull. When he showed the drum to Mr. Ned, the old man said, "Dan, you done fine. You got a real good drum there." Mr. Ned's like, "You got a real good drum." "And I did it myself." Dan tried to intimidate all the sounds he heard around him. The rhythm of the people singing, the cawing of the birds. Come here, you make cawing sound. The clacking of the leaves as they were fanned by a passing wind. Dan even stayed out in the rain to catch the pattern of rain and the heavy crash of thunder. Wow! He's like, look at all these sounds around me. I think I'm going to play them on my drum. Everybody, play them on your drum. 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 One day, Dan noticed there was hardly anyone in the fields. Where did everyone go? And he heard a loud galloping noise down on the main road. Maybe, he thought, this was something to play on the drum. Suddenly, a long line of horsemen in gray uniforms swept down the road through clouds of brown dust. Soon after the strange horsemen passed, people from the plantation appeared, scurrying along the road with bundles on their backs. Oh, they're like, "Shh, what do you think they're doing?" And Dan's like, "Oh, I think I'm going to spy on them." He's hiding. Dan ran up to the big house where the master lived and found many black men in blue uniforms. What could have happened? Dan wondered. One of the men in the uniform, whom Dan heard some of the other men call Captain, came over to Dan. "What is your name, little boy?" he asked. Dan said, "My name's Dan." "Where are your mother and father?" Dan said, "I hear they were sold away when I was most young. I just belong here." "Well, son," said the captain, "you don't belong here anymore. You're free now." Woo! Dan asked, "What do that mean?" "It means you can go anywhere you like. We've been fighting a civil war against the southern slave masters, the rebels, for over 3 years since 1861. Last year, President Lincoln declared all slaves free. The rebels don't want slavery to end, so they keep fighting. Charge! But we just beat them back. Many of these soldiers were slaves, you know. Now they're fighting for freedom." He's like, "I'm going to go to the big house." Now Dan was confused. If only he could find Mr. Ned. After the soldiers gave him some food, he decided to follow them as they marched away. Somewhere along the way, he might see Mr. Ned. "Oh, now I'm going to spy on the soldiers, see what they're talking about." The soldiers came to know Lil Dan. One of them, named Scipio, said he had a little boy the same age as Dan. Scipio said, "One day I'm going back to where I came from and find him." The soldiers came to a place where a large engine was waiting, snorting steam and thunder. It reminded Dan of the dragons and the stories Mr. Ned used to tell him. Dan was so frightened that Scipio lifted him onto his wide shoulders and carried Dan into the train. He said, "Dan, be brave. You're the mascot now for Company E." So Dan was like, "Oh no, what happened? What is that? I'm scared. I don't want to go." But Scipio said, "That's just a train." But Dan didn't know what that was. But he faced his fears. The trees, the cotton fields, the houses all whirled by until the train stopped at a place where there was rows of tents. Scipio told Dan it was called a bivouac area. "We'll drill here a while," he said. Dan watched the soldiers drill every day. Often, he would creep behind a rock and see the cannons fire round balls that burst into clouds of fire almost a mile away. In the evening, around the campfires, the soldiers enjoyed listening to Lil Dan play his drum. Very late one night, the men were awakened by the sharp sound of the bugle. Some men shouted orders. "Everyone fall, everyone up, fall in now, march! Up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4. The men marched into the night. Dan ran along, but in the darkness, no one noticed him. So he's like Harriet Tubman. He's kind of like a spy. By daybreak, Dan saw his friends of Company E lined up. The woods ahead of them exploded with gunfire and cannon. When Scipio saw Dan, he cried out, "Boy, you get away from here! Go back over that hill and wait till we come for you." And Dan was like, "I was only trying to see what was going on." Dan climbed up a tree, so he's not listening. He saw a long line of gray horsemen heading right to where Company E was posted. The same kind of men he had seen on the main road of the old plantation. Dan knew Company E was in danger. Dan wanted to do something, anything, to help his friends. He could see the gray cavalry rushing toward him. Dan had to act quickly. He remembered the sound of the cannon at the camp. Dan smacked the drum hard with his palms, but it wasn't the right sound. "Hurry, hurry!" a voice inside him cried. Dan broke off 2 sticks and hit the drum sharply with them. Smack, smack, that's better, just a bit sharper. Crack, crack, yes, this was it. This was the sound of the cannon the men called 5-pounders. Everybody play your crack, crack drum. The lead officer of the cavalry heard this sound. He raised his arm to halt the charge. "Turn back, boys," he cried. "We're riding into a heap of a cannon. We'll attack down that far road." With that, the men in gray turned and galloped away. Bum, 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 bum. The soldiers in Company E ran cheering toward Little Dan. "Yay, Little Dan, Little Dan!" Big Scipio took Dan in his arms. "Dan," he said, "you and your drum surely saved us." Everybody gave yourself a big hug. They're cheering for Lil Dan. When the battle was over, General William T. Sherman asked to see Lil Dan. "Oh no, what's he gonna ask me?" "Dan," the general said, "I learned your heroism today. Also, what good use you made of that drum of yours. Now, Dan, I want you to be a drummer in our Army's drum corps. And listen, Dan, you play your drum in your own way." And that's exactly what Lil Dan did. Playing the drum. Playing the drum. With the big guys. He was playing the drum. The end. And you know, my Angela read this book too.
Woo!
The end. Make sure to please subscribe to this video. Give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and thumbs to the side. Happy Veterans Day, and make sure to keep asking questions. Bye-bye. And this is Lil Dan.